everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Howard Heckman, one of the developers here at PTS. Today I'm going to give you kind of an overview of the ClearStream API that was released in the version 5 of the software. So kind of give you an idea of what it can do, how you guys can use it, give you a kind of a live demonstration of the API. And hopefully you guys can get up and running pretty quickly with adding your own features into the ClearStream application and really leveraging what ClearStream does for fixed RFID and BLE beacons into other applications. So before I get started, I would like to mention that all of the stuff that I show you today is available for free trial from our website at ClearStreamRFID.com. So you can go there and click on the free trial link and download the software. All of the API stuff is built into the application when you install it, so you can go ahead and trial everything that I show you here today. We'd like to make note that we are having an upcoming release of ClearStream that'll actually take some demos of the API, some websites that we're going to include with the installer, so that right out of the box you can actually see it in action. So I'll be showing you a little bit of that today as well, what we're going to be putting into that installer. I would also like to mention that at the end of the webinar today, we will be having a question and answer period. So please, if you have any questions, use the question panel in the GoToWebinar toolbar and send those over to me. I'd be happy to get to all of those today. If you do have anything while you're setting this up or after the webinar or something that I maybe don't get to, please feel free to reach out to us. I'll have our contact information up at the end of the webinar as well. So please feel free to send that stuff over. So with that, let's jump into it. So the ClearStream API was released in version 5 of the software. And kind of a little bit about what the ClearStream API is. The ClearStream API is a REST web-based API, and it allows you to issue commands to ClearStream to control and interact with the readers that you have set up within ClearStream. So in the past, ClearStream has always been a passive application where you can kind of configure it and forget it. You know, you configure your readers for RFID, you configure your Bluetooth beacon gateways, and map those readers and devices, including UHF, HF readers, into a pre-existing database. And really just start the application up and let it run. So it's really collecting that tag information passively in the background and routing the tag information as you have it configured into your database. With the REST API, it really allows you to turn the readers on and off, control the readers. You can power on the GPOs. You can see and work with the data that the devices are currently seeing out in the field. So it really allows the developer to give a front end to ClearStream, something that another outside application can view and see the data that these fixed RFID readers, these gateways, are collecting, and view it within their own application. It could be a web page, it could be an outside application, anything that can work with web data to interact with ClearStream. So here's some just example applications: station tracking, keeping track of things as they're moving to and from different workstations, and then allowing a UI at that workstation to see what's actively being scanned. So actually in the past, a lot of our customers and end users were working with ClearStream, and it's a fixed passive application where it's routing this tag information into a destination. Well, if you move an item to, say, a workstation, and you have a fixed RFID reader there that's scanning the tags that are actively at the workstation. So maybe you're doing document tracking or just manufacturing, you're keeping track of the items at that workstation at a particular time. ClearStream would scan those tags and push them over to the destination. You capture that information. But you may not necessarily have at that workstation kind of a visual view of what's going on for the user. So maybe you want the person that's receiving these documents as they're being scanned at that location, maybe by an HF scanner. Maybe you want to build a UI that allows them to see exactly what's on at their workstation. Well, that's what this API allows you to do. It allows you to view and see that data that ClearStream is actively seeing at that time. We can also set up BLE triangulation on a floor plan through this. So the API gives you access to all of the devices out in your field. It also then allows you to build out a floor plan. So we have some demos of this that we will be including in the future release of ClearStream, where you can actually grab the data from all of your gateways. And the beacons are great because they have that long read range and a consistent RSSI value that you can triangulate where that beacon is in a floor plan. And then through this outside application that's using the ClearStream API, you can see that data and look at it, triangulate it, and you can see now where beacons are within a facility down to a certain level of accuracy. Another example application that would be good for the API is shipping and receiving verification. So again, it goes back to kind of that UI that a user can see what's actively being scanned by these fixed readers. So imagine a fixed portal that, excuse me, is displaying items that are supposed to be scanned through that portal. Well, now you can, through the API, display all of the tags that are supposed to go out, say, on a shipment. And as they're being picked up by the RFID readers at that location, maybe they're marking those items as green in that UI through the API of ClearStream. So you get full control over how you display the data that's actively being scanned within ClearStream through the API. You have access to that data. So what can it do? Well, it allows, again, developers to create applications that incorporate RFID and beacons into their own applications. And it gives then the ability to build out front-end UIs for data validation and verification. So you're able to see this data that ClearStream's collecting. So again, it's no longer just a passive application. You can see it. So you can see on this iPhone screenshot here, this application is actually the one I'm going to show you in just a little bit. It's just a UI that allows you to see the readers that you have in your environment, start and stop them, and see the tag data that is actively being collected at that point. So again, it allows you to start and stop readers. It allows you to turn GPOs on and off. So maybe if at a workstation something happens, you can have outside software power up the GPO through ClearStream so that a light comes on at that location. You can get then the real-time tag data from these devices as well. So again, it goes back to being able to see what the readers are actively scanning and presenting that to the user. So from this UI here in this iPhone, you can actually start the reader and see this grid control populate with all of the tags that are actively at that location. I'm going to show you that in just a bit here, kind of in a live demonstration. And again, at the bottom here, I just say from any device, including your phone. So it's really powerful in that it can extend what you can do with ClearStream to different devices. So no longer can it just be a passive application that is scanning tags and beacons and collecting that in the background into your application, but it allows you to see that data and work with that data real time outside of ClearStream. Some of the extra kind of use cases we've seen with this is just even giving the ability for a user to do testing of fixed RFID with ClearStream. So this mobile handheld here can actually allows you to turn on and off the scanner, but in real time, you're able to see and collect that data that the reader is actively seeing. There's no need to go back to a database and say, oh, did I collect all of these tags that happen to walk through my portal? I can see it on the handheld in real time. So that data is being collected and displayed to the user that's actually testing the UHF or HF or whatever the technology they may be using, see that data as it happens. That's all available through this API to really extend the flexibility of how ClearStream can be used. So with that, I'm going to jump into little of the technical stuff here for the people that are familiar with REST APIs and how they work. So really a REST API is a web-based API that allows you to make requests to a web service. So on the top here, I do have the URL you would hit in order to access this API. Now this comes again pre-installed with ClearStream. So if you were to actually hit this address here, you would be able to work with the ClearStream API. It's exposed automatically when you download and install the application, but this is the URL where you'd hit to do anything that you'd like to within the API. And then down below are all of the different resources you have available to get and interact with the readers, the devices, the tags that the device is currently seeing, turn on and off GPOs and things like that. So this is a full list here. This will be growing with the additional releases to build extra functions to the readers so you can see that and work with that data. So the first set of those resources, device status, and so on, these allow you to get and set the device configuration. So these resources allow you to do things like turn on and off the readers, turn on and off your gateways, and also view all of the tags that are actively being seen by that device. So if I were to just hit that URL, the ClearStream URL with a /device path, it'll actually give me all of the devices that are currently configured within ClearStream, as well as all of the status of those readers. So it'll give me the tags that it's currently seeing. I'm going to show you a demo of that in just a second. but it'll give you that information. If you happen to pass in a device slash the device index, which say if you had one reader would be 0, so device slash 0 slash buffer, ClearStream will report back to you the exact buffer at that time in real time of what that device is seeing. So if you have a portal set up and it's actively scanning 100 tags, when you issue that command to the ClearStream web service, it'll spit back all of those tags, those 100 tags back to you, so you can go ahead and see that data within your application. The GPO here, this allows you to turn on and off and see the state of the GPOs. So if you had a light hooked up to the reader, I'm going to show you this demo in a minute as well. If you had a light or something hooked up to that reader or device, you can go ahead and power that on, power that off, and kind of configure it as you need to within your own application. So the second set of the resources here allow you to get and set the real-time data that's being scanned by ClearStream. So all ClearStream devices, they maintain a list or a buffer of all of the tags or beacons that they're currently seeing. So again, if we had a portal that's scanning 100 tags, ClearStream maintains those 100 tags within a buffer that you can then access through the API. So if you were to issue a command, make a request to the device slash 0 slash buffer, again, it gives you that whole buffer. It gives you back the 100 tags that that device is currently seeing. You can also, through this active resource, turn on and off that buffer, so you can pause it. So if you had 100 tags and you wanted to stop the reader from scanning any more tags, you can capture that 100 at that moment by pausing the buffer. So, excuse me, it makes it no longer active. The last two here are pretty powerful in that you can interact then and update that buffer from your API. So typically that buffer is just populated by the reader. It's scanning tags, it's filling out that buffer. The portal is seeing 100 tags and it's got a buffer of 100 tags. But using this command here, device slash buffer slash row, you're able to add tags to that buffer from an outside application, or you can update tags or beacons within that buffer. So the important point there is that you can now preload the buffer with things that you're expecting to scan. So imagine now at this portal, you're sending out shipment 1, 2, 3, and you know that there's 100 tags that are supposed to go out in that shipment. You know the exact tags that are supposed to go out in that shipment. So what you do is you send the buffer through this command to the reader. The reader now knows and has in its buffer that's supposed to scan 100 separate tags, and they're all tags 100 to 200. Then, as the tags are scanned, those tags are now being scanned and worked with by the reader's buffer from the reader. And you can, through that user interface, then show the user which items were scanned versus maybe which items weren't, or even exceptions of tags that weren't supposed to be scanned in there. So you're preloading that tag buffer for the reader. And then as the reader scans those tags, it's filling out that buffer with the tag information from the reader. So you're validating exactly what has been scanned and presenting that directly at the portal. So if you're looking at this portal, you can see now, oh, look, there's 100 tags that are supposed to go through it with this shipment. As it goes through, mark them all green on that portal, on that user interface. And then you can validate it by looking at that portal to see that everything went through that for that shipment, or maybe something was missed or something like that for different exceptions. And the last resource here, device slash buffer slash flush. This is this actually allows you to flush the buffer from the source to the destination. So if you guys are familiar with ClearStream, and I'll elaborate on this a little bit more in the live demo here, but if you're familiar with ClearStream, you map a reader or a device to a destination database. As all of the tags are scanned by that device, they're pushed over to the database and captured in the database. You can set it up now with the API so that ClearStream captures the tag data only in the buffer. And by issuing this flush command, at that point is when all of the tags that were captured by that reader get pushed over to the destination. So until that command is issued, there's no tags written to your database. Now you can see how you might be able to build that into the portal setup, where you scan 100 tags, the user validates on that tablet at the portal that all of the tags were scanned that were supposed to go out on that shipment. When everything looks good, they hit a button on their tablet that issues this flush command, which then takes that buffer and pushes it over to the destination. So I'll show you that in just a bit here through the live demo. But it allows you then to control when the tags are actually saved in your database. So these resources here allow you to interact and push those and control and see the tags and beacons that the readers are currently seeing within ClearStream. So I hope that kind of makes sense in my description. I thought I'd jump out to a little bit of a live demo now to kind of hopefully elaborate it through seeing it real time as to how this kind of works. So I'm going to jump out and jump into ClearStream. So here is ClearStream, and it's the configuration screen that you would see after you install the application. And I have a simple setup here of a single reader. Now, I have a Zebra FX9600 in this case, set up in what a smart cabinet. Now, I did want to set up a camera so you guys could see this, but unfortunately, I don't have that. But this reader is installed within a cabinet that has somewhere between 60 and 80 tags within that cabinet that it is set up to scan. So I called the reader the Smart Cabinet Reader. It simply is set up with a name. It doesn't really have any other configuration in here other than the tag buffer is turned on. And I have that reader now mapped to the RFID tag list database table. So this is just a standard, very simple setup within ClearStream where I have a fixed UHF RFID reader hooked up on the source to a destination Microsoft Access table over here called RFID tag list. So every time, excuse me, this reader scans a tag, it sends it over to the destination. So again, it's a very simple ClearStream setup. In the past, you basically just save this application. You'd jump over here to the start-stop form, and you'd go ahead and start this reader up, and it would actively scan the tags that are in that smart cabinet and push them over to the destination. But now we're going to use the API to show you this, controlling this smart cabinet through a web browser. So this is going to be my web browser on the PC here, but just imagine this could be my iPhone, this could be an Android device or something like that, where you're just going to a web page and you have full control over the reader that you have set up in this smart cabinet. So I'm going to jump over to the browser here, and you guys will recognize this from that screenshot there, but this is just a web page in Chrome. I have it set up to point to my PC. So you notice that URL that I mentioned before, the base URL, here it is. It's my IP address for the PC running ClearStream on port 4406. So this is set up, and if I were to refresh this dropdown, you can see this dropdown is set up to show all of the devices that I have configured within ClearStream. So right now I just have the smart cabinet device, but if I were to actually go back over here and add an additional device, I'll just do an emulated one. I'm going to set up a smart closet in my emulated environment. I can go ahead and add that to this configuration, save it, and if I jump back to the browser here again is using the API to grab the readers and devices that we have configured within ClearStream. So you can see now this is a completely separate application. It's a web page in this case, a website that is now communicating with ClearStream through the API to get the devices that I currently have configured. So imagine I'm holding a tablet here where I have this web page loaded, and I want to see the contents of the smart cabinet in real time. And maybe I have a whole bunch of smart cabinets, so I present the user this interface so they can select which smart cabinet they want to see. So I'm going to go ahead and select the first one here. And that's the cabinet now I want to check the inventory of. Now, in the past, again, remember this ClearStream would be running in the background and simply capturing the tag data into your database. But now I can actually control this so that I can start it up when I want to. So if you see in the background, I have these two devices set up. Smart cabinet is currently not running. And over here, through my web page, I can go ahead and start that device. So again, imagine this is a tablet or something, and I'm just checking my inventory on that smart cabinet. So I would just go ahead and hit start here. Now this, through the API, goes ahead and you can see it started up the reader. So I have a completely separate device or my own application. I was able to start the tag information or start the reader. And you can see what happened here is when I started it through the API again, it's retrieving all of the tags that reader's currently seeing. So you can see the date timestamps are updating here. The antennas that scan the tag are updating and RSSI values. So in real time, I was able to start the reader up and check the inventory of that cabinet. And you can see there's 71 tags in there. I can go ahead and hit stop. That, again, through the API, stops the device. So you can see in the background in ClearStream that device is no longer running. I can then take my tablet again and go ahead. I can clear the tags. And if I want to start a new inventory again, I just hit start device. That powers up the tag, powers up the reader, and it's actively scanning tags. And you can see it scan those 71 tags again. And it's capturing all of that information in real time. So you can see this is a web page that's using the ClearStream API to work with the data that is being seen by that device I have configured and showing that data to the user through this web interface. So you can imagine, like I mentioned, the portal setup where this buffer here maybe is preloaded with all of the tags that are supposed to be seen by that device when a shipment goes out. You could mark these as all green as they're scanned, and ones that are missing as red. You can kind of present that UI to someone at that location to do verification of tag data and to control what's happening with that reader. Turn it on, turn it off, control the GPOs, and see the tag data in real time. Okay. So I thought right now with that, I'd go over and actually add some emulated readers to show some of the other functions of the API, to show what else you can do. So what I'm going to do is slide this over to the right for the time being. I'll reset some of these counts here. I'm going to go ahead and configure a little virtual environment, and I'm going to issue some commands to this virtual environment. You can see things happening. Now, just consider that this virtual environment should be very similar to actual equipment, but you'll be able to see it here as to what I'm doing through the API. So I'm going to go ahead and build out a simple little floor plan. I'm going to add a closet, smart closet, and some readers. So I'll go ahead and add a reader here. I want a reader in my closet. I'm going to add one antenna to this reader. I want to scan everything that's in this location. Over here, I'm going to set up a little workstation. I want to scan things that are on my workstation here. So I'm going to go ahead and add an antenna. I'm going to, I want to add a GPO to this one because I want to power up a GPO through the API. So if something happens over here that's not supposed to, I can notify a user at the workstation that there's some kind of problem by turning the light on that's sitting next to them at that. So I'm just going to name this one Workstation 100, and we will name the other one the Smart Closet. I just want to know what's in this closet. Okay. So I'll go ahead and name this one here. So I have reader 1 is my Workstation 100 setup. I'll add some items to track in my environment. Over here is reader 2. Let's go ahead and configure those in ClearStream. So again, imagine this is actual equipment. I have 2 readers set up in my environment. I'm going to go configure these within ClearStream so that I can capture the tag data. So let's jump back to here. I am going to add a new process called Workstation. I'm going to add a device. Let me change this one to be the Workstation device, because that was device 1. I'm going to add a single antenna to this. I need to turn this buffer on with, say, a timeout of 2,000 seconds. And this is just basic setup of ClearStream here. I need to add a GPO to this because I wired up my GPO. And I'm going to tell it that the API is going to turn this GPO on. Nothing else is going to turn it on but the API. So I think that's all that I want for this. I'm going to add another reader for the Smart Closet. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing, a single antenna. I need to turn the buffer on. We'll make a smaller timeout time. And for this one, I'm going to do report tags again only after not visible. And for the other one, actually, this workstation, I want to turn off tag reporting, and I'll show you that in a second why I'm going to do that. But let's finish up with the Smart Closet. So I have a single antenna connected to my Smart Closet, and now I just need to map this Smart Closet to a database. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is add a process for my Smart Closet. I'm going to map it to the ClearStream RFID sample table. Okay, so I'm just hooking this reader up here, which is my smart closet. So smart closet, and we're hooking this smart closet reader, up to a database table, which in this case happens to be a Microsoft Access table. And what I want to do is from the smart closet be able to see the contents of that smart closet in that same interface that I used before for the web browser, where I was able to scan that smart cabinet. So let me just finish configuring my other smart cabinet, or the workstation reader. I'll select workstation. I'm going to go to that same database table called RFID tag list. It's a Microsoft Access database that comes with ClearStream when you install it. So if you guys want to test this, you can use this database. But now I have my workstation hooked up to the RFID tag list, and I have my smart closet hooked up to that same database table with my readers all configured in here. So let's go ahead and start actually turning these things on. So the first thing actually is I'll jump over. Let me save my project. Jump here, bring my environment back over, and I'm going to use this same interface to get the contents of this smart closet in real time. So I'm going to jump to the browser. I'm going to refresh this so that I get my 3 readers that I have now. So now through the API, I've retrieved that I have a smart cabinet, I have a workstation, and I have my smart closet. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to get the contents of my smart closet and clear the tags here. I have it down below at this point. Let me, I'm going to refresh this page to get rid of the top one. So I'm going to go with the smart closet and I'm going to start that device up. So right now you can see that, look, the smart closet has been turned on in the virtual environment here. You can see it's powered up. So the lights went on my reader. The antenna is powered up. It's actively scanning for tags. And now my web page over here is showing that there's nothing in the smart closet because you can see there's no items in there. So now let's go ahead and actually just move an item into that smart closet. And you can see what's happening over on the right-hand side. The API is seeing that. It's grabbing that data out of ClearStream, and now I can see what's in that smart cabinet. And I can see they're constantly updating. These 4 items are actively in that smart closet. If I were to move any of these items out of here, those items will be removed after the timeout time and shown that now I only have 1 item in my smart closet. So through my tablet, I'm able to start up the reader if I wanted to. You could have it running all the time if you needed. But you start up the reader and actively see what's in that closet in real time. And as the tags go into the closet, it shows you they're there. And as they are removed from this grid here. So you can see exactly what's in that closet. Now this is the virtual environment, but before I actually used equipment that had 71 tags in a metal storage cabinet that I was able to do the same type of thing. It shows you exactly what's in that location. Okay, so there's my smart closet that I'm able to see exactly what's in the smart closet. So let me close this. I'm going to stop this device. I'm going to issue a stop command, which then will see this shuts the reader off. I want to clear my tags. And now I wanted to actually show some of the more raw stuff to the API. So I hope you guys can follow along here. But I did want to show what you would sort of issue in your own application to get this stuff to work. So above here is a nice pretty looking grid control, but in the background, it's really using the API to get that information from ClearStream. Down below, I'm going to show you what this grid control up at the top is actually doing. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to see the status of all my readers. So before I showed you those different resources. So for the first one, I'll just go do a /device with a get method, and I'm going to hit go. Now what that does is it hits that URL, the ClearStream URL that's up above here, 192.44.06, with a get method for the device resource. And you can see down below, this is what comes back from ClearStream. So ClearStream gives me the current rundown of what is set up within these devices. So I get each device that comes back with its index, its name, the device ID, and so on, whether or not it started or not. I can also get all of the tags that are in the buffer. So you can see here is the buffer property, and all of the tags. So I get EPCs, I get the antenna that read it, and so on. All of this data comes back, and this is the 71 tags that I had read on that reader in the smart cabinet. Down below, you can see here I have my smart closet. Comes back, it's reader index 2. The name of that reader is smart closet. It started false. The buffer is active, and you can see here there's no buffer because it's all of those devices were pulled out. If I were to go put some of these back in and start that reader, let's do that manually. I will bring up the start of this device. So I'm going to say device index 2, I want to start it. So I'm going to issue to the device. I'm going to do a post method for this device with this command for a single reader. Now you can turn on multiples in one, but I'm only going to do one, and I'm going to issue this. So now it sent the start command to the device resource to ClearStream, and I got a response back from ClearStream saying result was successful. If I look over here, now you can see I have the reader powered up. So the nice grid control up top is just doing that same sort of stuff. It's hitting their URL with some parameters to say, hey, start this reader, or start that reader, or stop a reader, or power up a GPO and things like that. It's issuing those to these different resources through the API. So now if I switch this immediately to a get and go ahead and hit get, I'm now requesting the buffers again. And if I scroll all the way down to my smart closet, you can see by me issuing a request for this device with the get method, I can see the buffer of this device is now all of these EPC tags here. So there should be 2. So you can see the 2 are in this buffer array here. So I'm able to get exactly in real time by just saying, excuse me, hit this URL /device with a get, and this could be blank in this case, but with a get, it'll give me the information for that. I can also say get /2, and now it'll just give me, for device 2, it'll give me the information about that device. So now I didn't return these 71 from that other reader. I got just this the single response for this one reader. So I got index 2 back, and I can do the same for the workstation. Now the workstation is not currently on, so I can see, I get back the name of the device. I can see that it hasn't been started. The inventory is not started, and in this case, I also get the GPO. So GPO port 1 is currently off, so you can see that GPO over there is off. So it gives you all of that information about the reader by just saying, hitting that website URL with a /device/1. Okay, so for this one, let's actually go ahead and start it up. So again, I'm going to grab my start information. I want to start up reader, the workstation. So I'm going to go ahead and issue a post to /device of reader 1 with the start as set to true. I'll go ahead and do that. So now I sent that over to ClearStream, and it turned on reader 2. And I got back the response saying it was successful. Now, what I want to do with this one is actually I wanted to show you a little bit different behavior with this reader here. This reader, what you'll notice is it shouldn't, if I put devices inside of this antenna for the workstation, it's not sending these tags to the database. So you can see that down below here, that there's no reader currently inside of this reader activity because it hasn't sent any tag data to the destination. So let's imagine there's somebody working at this workstation. They bring over 2 items that they want to track. These could be documents or whatever. They put them on the workstation here. They're actively being scanned by this antenna, but they're not being sent to the database because I want the user at this workstation to tell me maybe when he's done with this or when he's validated that I have these 2 items to push that to the database to say, hey, I've captured this information. So in that case, what I can do is I can see that these tags are being scanned by hitting this URL again with the get. And I can see now my workstation is actually seeing those 2 tags. So I'm getting the response from here saying that this reader is actually seeing 2 tags. However, they're not sent to the database. So that isn't actually being captured because I'm going to allow the user to say when he's done with this information to push it over to the database. So what I'm going to do at this point is flush the tags like we talked about in the PowerPoint. I'm going to flush these tags to the destination. So what you'll see in this case is, and if I can move enough stuff out of the way here, that there's no reader again for the workstation in this list. And if I issue a device 1 buffer flush, I'm going to go ahead and hit go on that one. We can see the result was true, that it was successful. And look what happened over here in ClearStream. It took the 2 items that are sitting inside of the field of view of this antenna and now pushed them to the database. So now I gave the user control of when the tags that are currently being scanned at that workstation are going to be saved into the database. No longer is it just when these tags are being scanned. It's that the user or whatever function was validating this data says, okay, everything's good, push it to the database. So it gives that control. So again, let's go back to that portal scenario where maybe the portal scans 100 tags, but you don't want it to just always be hitting the database. You want at that portal the person that just walked through with 100 items to take a look at that UI, see that all 100 items were scanned, everything on the screen is green. Now you give them a button, say everything's good, they press that button, and all those 100 tags then get pushed over to the database to validate that shipment and save it to wherever you sent this to a SQL Server system, to some type of web service itself that ClearStream is communicating to. It's taking that data and pushing it over to the destination. Okay. So one thing I did want to mention, actually, I wanted to mention at the start of the webinar, but all of this information is actually available in Chapter 11 of the user guide. So I wanted to give you kind of a high-level overview of how these things work. But if you want to see all of the different methods and resources available through the API, take a look in Chapter 11 of ClearStream, and you can see everything that you can do with the API. And it goes into different examples. You can actually cut and paste the examples out of the user guide here. And if you just send them to ClearStream, you should see the same responses that you would get in the manual from the example that's been printed there. So just take a look at there. It'll show you all of the really technical details of what happens in the API with each of the different commands. So the one last one I wanted to do is show you the GPI, or the GPO, sorry. So this scanner here, I have that GPO hooked up. So I want to just turn that one on through the API. So I'm going to go back over to my test area here, and I'm going to just copy and pasting this here. I'm going to turn on a GPO for device 1. I'm going to take my parameters for this, and I'm going to say device, it's kind of redundant there, but device 1, port 1, I want to turn that to true and send that command. Oops, wrong method. I'm going to switch that to post. So here actually is a good example. I put the wrong method for this particular resource. So ClearStream responded with an error message. I'm going to switch that to post and send this over. And device index specified in path. Try that again. Should be /1. Yeah, this should be turning my GPO on. What do I have wrong here? Port 1 on true, index 1. There's something wrong in my settings here. But this would allow you to turn on the GPO. Is this which index? Is that right? This would allow you to turn on the GPO directly from the API. And I don't know what I have wrong here, so I apologize. But anyway, that'll turn on the GPO here through the API so that you can power on and off. So imagine again in a portal situation, you scan everything here, and then your application pushes over a response that turns the light on. So a user is actually at that location, sees the light come on, they may know to do something at that point. They're all done with these items. They can then take them away from their workstation, something like that. So I apologize, I don't know what I have wrong there. Okay, so with that, I will jump out of the live demo. I think that's kind of everything that I wanted to cover today so that we have time for questions if you guys have that. Actually, one thing I will say, because I didn't mention it, the API is started up automatically when you start, when you install Clearstream and start the application. The ports are set on the Tools Preferences dialog. So you saw I was hitting 4406, but you can change that if you needed to. But this would be the port that you'd hit for the API in order to get that response. There's also a checkbox down here called Accept Command Messages. This will basically turn the API on or off. If you don't want to give access to API commands, you can turn it off here. Let me jump back over to the PowerPoint. And with that, we'll jump over to any questions you guys have. So I hope my descriptions here were pretty clear for you all. If you do have any questions on this, please send it on over. Bear with me while I open up the question. Okay, first question I do have here is, what are you using for the API demo web interface? And you have the IP address here. So that's just an internal web server that we have installed here at PTS. So I was hitting, if you guys were looking, the IP address here of 192.4.9/API/demo. This is just where I have this web page saved. It's an internal little web server that we have set up. You don't need to use a web server. You can actually just create, if you wanted to use a web page, you could create the HTML and JavaScript that you're using for the API and just run it from disk. You would just save the HTML file, you double click on it, Chrome would open up and you'd have the same sort of thing. So that's actually what we're looking to do with the installer for Clearstream with a release that'll include some demos here. It'll include this HTML file with the JavaScript for making the API calls, and it would just be opened from your file system. So say it was installed to your My Documents folder, you would just double click on the demo, it opens it up in Chrome, and you can kind of do everything here. I happen to put this on a internal web server that we have set up so for the demo, but that's just for us. It wouldn't work for anybody else. The next question here is the GPO configured within the device? So the GPOs would be typically wired up to the device. Most RFID readers have multiple ports for GPOs available. So something like a light, you would just wire up to, say, port 1 on your GPO block, or port 2, whatever you may need it to be. So you just wire that up, and then through Clearstream, you would just configure that you have a GPO configured to that. So here you can see I have on port 1, I have an alert type API, which basically means the API is going to turn port 1 on. And then a duration set to 0 here means it'll stay on indefinitely until the API turns it off. But if you were to set something else here, like say 10,000, it'll turn the GPO on for 10 seconds and then go off automatically. But yeah, so those are the couple steps there. You would wire the GPO up, whatever you needed. You would then configure it here as to what port it's hooked up to. And then through the API, you issue, and hopefully I'll correct that after the webinar here, you issue the GPO on command, which would then turn that GPO on or off. And I'm not sure what I had wrong on mine, but I'll figure that out and let you guys know. Okay, there's a question here. Is there an example database for GPO and GPI? I'm not sure I follow exactly what you were looking for. GPI, I didn't get into today, but general purpose input is what allows you to turn on the scanner based on an input. So it could be like a button or a motion sensor or something like that. That is configured within Clearstream here. You go to the scan mode and you would set up a GPI trigger. The only way that works with the database is that if a GPO trips a read, motion detected. Let's say we had a motion detector hooked up on port 1 and we wanted it to scan for 10 seconds. This name of the GPI is captured with all the tag data. So that if you were to look in your database, you would see, oh, what started this read? It would be captured with a motion detected. So that is actually captured into the database. That's the only thing that really the GPI does on the database side. The GPO is a little bit separate in that it's powering up a device, an external device on the reader for kind of indication of different things. You know, there's an error condition or something like that. here's a question that always comes up. Is this webinar available to view later on? Yes, the webinar is being recorded, and we always like to put these up on our YouTube channel. So please keep an eye out for that. We sometimes send out emails too when it becomes available. But this one we feel is going to be good for the developers and even people that just want to kind of work and expand Clearstream for different use cases. So we do want to get this one up on our YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that. It is being recorded and will be posted to the site. And it's always good too. We always get good feedback on that because you can kind of follow along. Then you can download the free trial from the website and then follow along in the webinar to see kind of how everything works. Question here about what security is present for the commands. Currently, the API is open. However, that is something that we are working on for a next release, is to add username, passwords, as well as an API type key authentication for the API so that not anyone can hit it. The initial release of the API sort of assumed that it would be an internal application that would be blocked for users that weren't really intended based on maybe a firewall or something like that if they were outside of the network. So it is open at this point, but that will be changed soon with the next release of Clearstream. Question here, I understand that you can copy from the user manual some example. Is there any more? The only examples we currently have are in the user guide. It does give an example for every one of the resources available for the API. So you can go ahead and see exactly see an example for every possible variation of the commands that you can get from Clearstream. But again, we are this sample that I showed you guys here today, this web page. This we're looking to incorporate inside of the installer so that you can see this going back and forth. And behind the scenes, it builds into, you know, it'll have all of those commands and you can see them as additional examples. So we are looking to get that up. I thought I had this open. Yeah, so I do have over here. We're going to be releasing this sample here, minus maybe the little demo area that I put on the bottom for the goes. But we're going to be releasing this with the installer, so you'll be able to grab all of the samples here. This is all JavaScript. It doesn't have to be done via JavaScript, but we're going to include the HTML for it, as well as the JavaScript to issue all those commands, so that out of the box, you can use this interface here for scanning and starting and stopping readers, scanning tags, and that sort of stuff. One other thing that we probably will be including, I didn't get into it today, but let me bring it up, is the triangulation of beacons. So if I go to that demo that we should have, let me look for it. So we have demos that are currently allow you to triangulate beacons to see them within your environment. And if I can bring that up, it's /floor plan. I'll show you that kind of. So here, this demo will probably be releasing. The problem with this is it's very specific to your environment. But through the API, like I showed you have access to all of the different RFID tags, HF tags, UHF tags, things like that, but also beacons. So you can see all of the beacons that your gateways are currently reporting. And along with those beacons, you can see that RSSI, or that signal strength, which then allows you to calculate triangulation. So here I have set up, this is a floor plan, and these blue dots are where the gateways are set up. And if I had this one running here, what you can see is you can put the MAC address of the beacon you'd like to track, and it'll show you in the environment where that is. Now, it's not perfectly accurate. Nothing for these beacons are. I mean, you have walls and reflections and things like that that'll affect it. But you get a general idea of where the beacon is within the environment. And you can actually see that through this. So we're working on this as a demo as well, so that you can track beacons in your environment, exactly where they are in your office space or your floor plan. So this is something else that's kind of exposed through the API that you can do, and you can see it. But again, it's not perfect. You're going to see bouncing around of the beacon, but it will give you a general idea of where those beacons are. Okay, I have a question here. Can I use a SQL Azure database as a backend? The different database options, I'll show you those here. Are ODBC databases, so this includes anything like SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, maybe a SQL Server database running in Azure, things like that. So you can go ahead and map it directly if there's an ODBC driver available to that database. We also have a native SQL client, so if it's a SQL Server database running in Azure, as long as you have the login credentials, you can point directly to that database. We have Excel and text files, which we recommend only for certain situations, but you can write tag data to those as well. Finally, new for version 5.0, and we will be having a webinar set up for this one as well, excuse me, that allows you to send it to actually web services. So similar to what we're doing here with the web services communicating with ClearStream, this allows you to send your tag data to a endpoint, which can be a URL, which then allows you to do the different methods, content type, username and password, and format the data as you need it. So if it needs to be JSON or something like that, you can format that data and it gets sent to this endpoint. So every request then of the tag data is sent to maybe say a post. Post here. So now I'm posting my tag data to that URL. So we're going to have another webinar talking strictly about that feature, which is new to version 5.0. But if you had an API on the back end that you needed to go through, that's a web service type like REST API, you can use these templates to push the data over to that. But in the case of Azure, if it's a like a SQL Server database, you could do a SQL Server and enter the username and credentials and things like that. Or in some cases, if it's a beacon, you could actually install ClearStream on the Azure cloud if it's a Windows server to capture data directly in that environment. Okay, I have a question here about, does the API push to the web page when new tags come into the zone, or do I have to refresh to see the tags? So right now it is a long poll method where it actually makes a request to ClearStream, and then ClearStream responds the tag data when there's tag data available. So it is a request. So what I've done here is actually on a timer, a JavaScript timer in this case, where it's actually polling the server for the tag information and pulling that. We are looking into upgrading that to like a WebSocket type communication, something like that, where it's more of a two-way communication. But in this case here, you're polling the server for that tag data as it becomes available. So you don't necessarily have to refresh the entire web page. Like, you didn't see that I did that, but behind the scenes, it was just requesting that tag information. Sorry, I'm going to clear up some of these. Yeah, there's a question here. I think it's a question. If you're familiar with curl, you can use command lines curl-d. Yeah, this is a good point. If you're using curl, you can issue commands to ClearStream as well. So you don't have to use it in a JavaScript environment or strictly web environment. It could be in curl, which would allow you to do really into any programming language, PHP, C, something like that, where you can issue these commands. The API is hopefully very easy for you guys to go ahead and incorporate into an outside application. You can use any type of HTTP client that can make an HTTP request to get this and work with the API. So it could be curl, it could be a .NET HTTP client class, a C# class. It could be just JavaScript. What I was doing here, which is probably the easiest, is just a JavaScript library that's making AJAX requests to the server to get that tag data and to work with those readers. So that's what we have here, and that's what the demo will be shipped with when we include it with the installer. I also have a comment here. I think your GPIO device in the URL should have been port 0 to turn it on. I think you might be right on that, because it was the first GPO, not which is index 0. So a good catch on that one. I think I blew up my configuration here at the time being, but I think that's right. If in the demo here, if I issued that 0 command for my port, that should have turned that on, I believe. So good catch. I will test that after the webinar, but that does turn GPOs on and off, so good find. Okay, any other questions? I think I got through all of these. Please feel free to keep sending them over. I'm always happy to answer questions. So I will bring up the PowerPoint in the meantime. Any other questions? Okay. And again, keep them coming. I don't want to stop if you guys have anything else. But here's our contact information, just in case you don't. If we always encourage everybody to go to our website at ClearStreamRFID.com and download the trial. Again, you can use everything that I showed you today through the trial. Just make sure you download the latest version, and you'll have access to the API. It's all free to trial again, so you can do everything that I showed you. The only limitation is the amount of days that you have for that trial, so you can see how everything works, make sure it works for you, test UHF scanning in your environment and things like that. So we do encourage you to go to the website. And as always, if you do that and install the software, please reach out to us with any questions you may have. Finally, if there are no more questions, I would like to thank you guys first for coming onto the webinar today, but also please send over feedback about the content. Most webinars that we do are typically kind of revolve around getting started with ClearStream because we want to get people up and running quickly. This one went into much more technical detail, at least with the API. Me being a programmer, I don't know how to talk about it, especially on the API side, without it being that way. But if you can give us feedback on the webinar, was it good content? Did I, accurately describe everything so that you guys understand it? We would love to hear back from you as far as that. Also, if you have any comments on the API, it is new, so please send over your feedback on that. We hope it can really expand the use cases for ClearStream and what it can do as far as building additional logic and UIs on top of ClearStream so that it's not just a passive background application. But send that type of feedback over just because we would love to hear it. So with that, I guess I really do appreciate you guys hopping on the call today. I hope it wasn't too technical for you guys and too deep into that type of stuff. But again, I appreciate you kind of following through and taking a look at it. So with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. And thanks for joining us here at ClearStream. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.